Good morning, everyone. My name is Analisa Dalisay, and I am currently teaching at an international school in Vietnam. I have been an ESL teacher since 2019, and I am graduating from FEU Roosevelt. I conducted my thesis research in January 2024. During my time teaching in public schools in Haiphong, I conducted my thesis research on the use of educational games to enhance English language proficiency among grade 5 ESL students. This experience has greatly influenced my teaching methods and my passion for integrating innovative strategies to improve language learning outcomes. These are the table of contents of my presentation. Number one, the title, Rational SOP Methodology Summary of Results, and the recommendations. To start my presentation, I will go to the rationale. There is the objective, the significance, focus, methodology, and the outcome. In today's rapidly evolving educational landscape, the integration of interactive learning strategies in the classroom has become increasingly significant. This study explored the impact of educational games on student engagement and academic performance in ESL classroom. With the growing emphasis on active learning, it is crucial to understand how these games can be effectively utilized to enhance learning outcomes. The proficiency in English language among ESL students is vital for their academic success and global communication skills. Educational games have emerged as an innovative pedagogical strategy that can potentially enhance language acquisition by providing an interactive and engaging learning environment. This thesis aims to investigate the effectiveness of educational games in improving English language proficiency of grade 5 ESL students in Haiphong, Vietnam. Over the past decade, numerous students have highlighted the potential benefits of incorporating interactive tools in education. However, there remains a gap in understanding their specific impact on ESL learners, particularly in terms of engagement and performance. This study aims to fill this gap by examining the effects of educational games on ESL students in a Vietnamese educational context. It seeks to bridge the gap in current literature regarding practical ESL teaching methodologies in public schools and contribute to the development of more dynamic and student-centered learning experiences. The primary purpose of this study is to investigate how educational games influence student engagement and academic performance in ESL classrooms. By identifying effective strategies and tools, this research seeks to provide educators with practical insights to enhance their teaching practices and improve student outcomes. By focusing on grade 5 students, this study targets a critical stage where foundational language skills are solidified, thus having long-term educational implications. For the SOP number one, what are the pretest scores of the respondents in English language proficiency of the control and experimental groups before implementing educational games? This will be answered in table number one. The table one shows the pretest scores in both the experimental and control groups. In the experimental group, they have 4% scored in the range of good, 56% is scored excellent, and 40% is scores very good, with a weighted mean of 41.2, which is excellent. In the control group, 2% is scored very poor, 24% is scored excellent, and 30% is scored very good, and 26% is scored good, and 18% is scored poor, with a mean of 32.70. The experimental group had a higher mean score, indicating better performance, while the control group had a greater standard deviation, indicating more scattered score. For the SOP number 2, what are the post-test scores of the respondents in English language proficiency of the control and experimental groups after implementing educational games? The answer will be in table number 2. Table number 2 shows that in the experimental group, 86% of students scored in the highest range of 41 to 50, which is excellent, and 14% very good, with a mean of 45.54 and a standard deviation of 5.61. In the control group, 56% scored excellent, 40% scored very good, and 4% scored good with a mean of 42.71 with the standard deviation of 5.83. Both groups showed higher mean scores described as excellent after the intervention. Notably, no students scored in the very poor or poor range post-intervention, indicating improved English language proficiency in grammar, vocabulary, and speaking skills. For the SOP number 3, is there a significant difference in the respondents' pre-test and post-test scores before and after the implementation of educational games? The answer will be in table number 3. The difference in pre-test and post-test scores in the control and experimental groups was analyzed. This suggests that both the traditional method used in the control group and educational games used in the experimental group were equally effective, as there was no significance in their pre-test and post-test. For the SOP number 4, is there a significant difference from the pre-test to post-test scores of the students in both the control and experimental groups? The answer will be in table 4, and it shows a statistically significant increase in scores from pre-test to post-test for both the control and experimental groups. This indicates significant improvements in both groups, with the control group showing a 23.46% increase and the experimental group a 10.8% increase. Both teaching strategies, educational games, and traditional methods were effective in improving student scores. For the SOP number 5, what training program can be proposed using educational games on the study's findings to improve English language proficiency among grade 5 ESL students in selected public schools in Haiphong, Vietnam? Okay. The proposed training program for teachers is to improve English language proficiency among grade 5 ESL students in selected public schools in Haiphong, Vietnam. A professional development program is proposed. This program includes a one-day seminar workshop on the effectiveness of gamification in education conducted during the school's week-long inset program. The title of the program will be Gamification and Methods Enhancement. The theme is Enhancing Teaching Strategies Through Class Gamification. The duration is 8-hour seminar workshop on the second day of the inset program in May. This is the background and the objectives. Students have diverse learning styles, and integrating multimedia and technology can enhance engagement and learning. Gamification, which incorporates game elements into classroom discussions, has been shown to improve student performance and engagement. And the objective is to train teachers on the use of gamification strategies and teaching. There is also a pre-implementation, implementation, and post-implementation. The target participants are all the teachers, and the fund source will be in the school. There is also a risk in this program. Potential risks include unavailability of experts, teacher workloads, funding issues, and managing teacher expectation. There is the training methods, the actual training approach, and the workshop. There is also the committee in charge, the committees and the in charge. Steering committee will be the principal, training team will be the researcher, a working committee, the school coordinators, and monitoring and evaluation will be the principal, coordinators, and researchers. This is the financial planning. The total budget will be 10,000 pesos. That includes the materials, food and drinks, certificates, and stipend. There is also a training materials here. The objectives here, the target, the project objective, person involved, time frame, and the output. Of course, the target here are the teachers. The project will be the gamification and methods enhancing teaching strategies to class gamification. The objective is to empower and enhance the teacher's teaching technique through gamification. And the teachers inset program, okay, the inset training, and the train teachers with the use of gamification in their lessons and have a positive impact on students' performance. For the evaluation, we have good, very good, and satisfactory. The speaker is able to convey needed information, mastery of the topic, communicate well to the listener, observe proper time management, and able to impact knowledge through workshop. For the hypothesis, there is no significant difference in the English language proficiency of the students in the pre-test and post-test. And there is no significant difference between the pre-test and post-test scores of the students in both groups. For the methodology, the student employed a quasi-experimental design with a pre-test post-test control group to investigate the effects of using educational games on English language proficiency, attitudes, and motivation among grade 5 ESL students in Haiphong, Vietnam. It was conducted in the Lê Chanh district with Leventham primary schools as the primary research site. The study involved 100 grade 5 ESL students from Leventham Primary School. These students were randomly assigned to either an experimental group, 50 students, or a control group, 50 students as well, and parental consent was obtained for student participation, and the research focused on the ESL learners. For the instruments of the study, there is the pre-test and post-test, questionnaire, and observation list. The study utilized a pre-test and post-test adopted from the Cambridge English or Young Learners exams to measure the English language proficiency of grade 5 ESL students before and after the intervention of educational games. A questionnaire based on the Technology Acceptance Model, or TAM, was used to evaluate the students' attitudes and perceptions towards the games, and an observation checklist recorded students' behaviors during game sessions. For the data gathering procedures, involve obtaining approvals, administering a pre-test, randomly assigning students to experimental or educational games, and control traditional instruction groups, conducting a 6 weeks intervention, administering a post-test, and analyzing the data using descriptive and inferential statistics to assess the effectiveness of the educational games. For the data analysis, the data analysis involved using mean and standard deviation to determine the pre-test and post-test scores of the control and experimental groups. A t-test was used to compare the pre-test and post-test scores between the groups, and a paired t-test was applied to assess the difference from pre-test to post-test scores within each group. The significance level for all tests was set at 0.05. The research instrument was a multiple choice test with 4 options scaled by correctness, and scores were calculated by weighting each option. The total scores for each respondent were obtained by summing the scores for all items, with interval and class limits determined by dividing range of possible scores. For the summary of results, there is the pre-test scores, okay, the post-test, the pre-test versus post-test score increases, and training program. The experimental group outperformed the control group in the pretest with a higher mean. The control group had greater standard deviation, indicating more scattered scores. Both experimental and control groups achieved excellent mean scores in the post-test. Students improved in grammar, vocabulary, and speaking skills. There is no significant difference was observed between the control and experimental groups. Educational games were as effective as the traditional method. Statistically significant score increases occurred from pre-test to post-test in both groups, validating the effectiveness of both teaching strategies. A proposed 5-day training program for integrating educational games into ESL instruction was developed. For the recommendations, there is the use of educational games, the additional strategy, training program, large sample size, attitudes and behavior, and long-term effects. To enhance English language proficiency among grade 5 ESL students, the study recommends integrating educational games focused on vocabulary, grammar, and speaking, alongside traditional teaching methods across various disciplines. This approach has shown to boost student participation, social and emotional learning, and academic performance. Additionally, implementing a teacher training program on educational games is advised. Future research should involve larger sample sizes to validate these findings and explore the long-term effects on students' attitude, behaviors, and knowledge retentions. The study's results are supported by game-based learning theory by G. Prensky and Squire, and gamification theory by Diterting et al., which highlight the benefits of games in enhancing motivation, engagement, and learning outcomes. Studies by Chen, Hensu, and Lane also found that educational games improve vocabulary, listening, and speaking skills. That is the end of my presentation. Before I end this presentation, I want to leave this as an old Chinese saying, tell me and I'll forget. If you show me, I might remember. Involve me and I'll understand. And today, we're considering an excellent and effective approach to becoming more engaged in our language learning experience, which is the educational games by Confucius. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day.